Hey, everybody. As recruiters, we all know that hiring can be one of the most challenging parts of running a business. Whether you're a startup looking to build a dream team or a well established company aiming to streamline your recruitment process, the right tools can make all the difference. Teamtailor is a powerful all in one recruitment software your candidates and team will love. Teamtailor isn't just a piece of software, it's a way of working. With Teamtailor, you get everything you need in one place: powerful analytics, an AI assistant, customizable workflows, and more. Plus, Teamtailor is super easy to use and implement. You can onboard hiring managers with minimal training and get started right away, thanks to an easy implementation and intuitive, user friendly interface. 94% of teams report better collaboration, and 89% of companies say their hiring process is faster. If you're focused on the candidate experience, it's at the heart of the ATS. Just ask any of the 4 million candidates who connect with customers every month. Join the ranks of over 150,000 recruiters and more than 8,500 companies like Oatly, Porsche, and OneFlow who have transformed their recruitment with Teamtailor. Discover the new way to attract and hire top talent and see the results for yourself. Welcome to the Rebel TA podcast. You're tuned in with Emily Mucken, a senior technical recruiter at Reddit, who's formerly worked at companies like Netflix and Amazon. Emily, thanks for joining.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I love any chance to talk shop and really nerd out about all things recruiting. So it's going to be fun.
Same here. That's why I started the podcast, is just a way to just shed a little light on how recruiters are networking and building community. Like a lot of us who have worked in tech, it's been a wild couple of years. And for some of us, we're able to catch our breath a little bit. But where are you based and what are you working on?
Yes, so I'm based in the Seattle area, and I'm currently hiring for pretty niche software engineering roles. So I think we've all seen there's kind of a mismatch in the market right now between the folks who are looking for work typically and the roles that are available. And that's certainly true for many of the roles that I'm working on as well. There are these really like kind of odd, very senior one-off roles where they're requiring a very specific skill set and area of expertise, which makes this search very satisfying when we close these roles, but they are definitely keeping me on my toes.
100%. Yeah, I know what it's like. I worked with a company once, and their core code base was written in Adobe Cold Fusion, and we were looking for folks that had, I think, just about been born around when it was shipped, and it was one of those off-the-shelf solutions. But that was a really niche technical role, and no one wanted to touch it, even the guys that were familiar with Cold Fusion, because the last notated update was in like 2013.
Wow.
So I know what it's like to fill niche roles. How are you thinking about talent attraction at Reddit and getting really great engineers to join you?
Ooh, I love a big, vague question. The first thing that comes to mind is, from my experience, the people working at Reddit generally tend to say, even on places like Blind, not that I recommend that you go there, um, things like we have great work-life balance and awesome company culture on the inside. When I joined, I was like, wow, everyone I meet here is like funny and a little weird in their own way. We have a really strong diversity, inclusion, and belonging um, team within Reddit, and have our employee resource groups really well represented and supported. But where I think we're on this journey is how to tell that story better externally, because even when I was hiring folks at Amazon prior to joining Reddit, I'd also been at Netflix briefly. Reddit was never on my radar as a place to poach from, to be honest. And in conversations with people in the tech community, particularly folks that I might be working with as hiring partners, I never once heard them say, "Oh, and we should go after, so and so at Reddit." And it's not that we don't have great talent. I just think we have this great story to tell about the amazing talent that we have working for us, and then the awesome, as I mentioned, super quirky and very engaged, enthusiastic company culture. And so, but I just personally feel like there could be a disconnect or an opportunity to just tell that story better externally. So that was a kind of a long and winding way of saying yes, I'm definitely thinking about talent attraction at Reddit, and how we can bridge the gap, tell that story at scale. So um, yeah, we do have a social media team, we have a communications team. Something that I've been working on personally is building out IRL, or I should, Reddit loves acronyms like in case you missed it, or am I the asshole? And so, okay, so to spell that out, in real life, networking events, particularly this past year, I've been working on networking events based in Reddit offices, inviting women in software engineering to come together and meet women from our own software engineering community within Reddit, building community and engagement there as well. So I feel like I just spun out a little bit and I didn't answer your question very concisely, but just know that
You
it's
nailed
very
it.
top of mind. And I'm always interested in, when we talk about talent attraction, bigger picture, how people make decisions is very interesting to me. And that's what got me into talent sourcing in the first place, and what's kept me with always like a thumb on that pulse, because um, I've seen it really change throughout the years, and it also can depend on the industry that you're hiring for. But when I think about our post pandemic world and talent attraction, I mean, heck, 5 years ago when I got into the tech industry, what was really interesting to people was a brand name. And anyway, so I'll leave that there. I was about to give some hot takes, but I might not want those recorded. Okay,
Oh, I
so
want to hear them.
so some brand names have more appeal than others, and so moving on to present day though, post pandemic, what I've noticed when it comes to talent attraction and what causes someone to consider a new job opportunity or a company is that there's less interest and even trust in brand names, particularly the big brand names. I myself was impacted by a layoff by a big brand name a couple of years ago. What people are more interested in regards to talent attraction is more like, um, who am I going to be working with? Are they nice? Like, we all know that there's no such thing as a career path anymore that's guaranteed. I know my grandpa worked for Lockheed for years and he retired with a pension. Well, those days don't exist anymore. In tech, things are constantly in flux. And so, what I'm noticing is that people are really more interested in, how am I going to feel when I work there? What kinds of like cool, funky problems will I be solving? And it's less about, oh, it's a Fang, it's a Mang, it's a, this or that type of company, because we've all seen the headlines and those opportunities can come and go. So I should
Bringing the
pause for a
heat
breath.
out the gate.
Yeah.
There are so many threads I want to pull in there. We can kind of work backwards. Um, I live and work in a cattle ranch in the suburbs of Denver. So I'm actually out here in my basement where I've been building startups. And from my roof, I can see like a huge Lockheed facility. So all my neighbors are like Lockheed folks. Um, so I like that you mentioned that, because I'm always like poking them like, hey, what's actually going on in our
Yeah.
world?
What are you
What are you
doing in
working
there?
on? Are we
Yes.
going to the moon?
Yes.
Um,
Did we
Recruiting to
ever
me is
go
all
to the
about
moon?
building connection.
Yes.
That's a good one. I have a pretty good thesis on like yes. One of them is the fact that my daughter's friend, her father landed the Mars rover,
Mm.
like actually on Mars. He
Wow.
works in aerospace, so I've got a few like inside scoops on space from a Connect, but I won't put him on blast or violate his NDA.
Mm.
But back to you in
Yes.
terms of your experience in finding an organization that aligns with your values. I can make some assumptions, but like knowing what I know
Mm.
about Amazon's culture, knowing what I know about Netflix's culture, knowing what I know about Reddit's culture, it seems like a progression that aligns with perhaps authenticity.
Mm.
You mentioned part of that EVP for engineers is a little bit of quirkiness. Reddit has interesting culture for sure online. How does that translate into like the product and the people that are attracted to work there?
Well, first I'll start with my personal experience. So I was very privileged. I recognize that because the market, if there are any recruiters listening, which I'm sure there will be, we all know that the market has gotten that much more difficult for folks in talent acquisition within the last couple of years. So I just want to tip my hat to that and send out a virtual hug to anyone who's looking for a new role within recruiting. But 2 years ago, after being laid off from Netflix, um, I did have multiple job offers, and Reddit was actually not the highest title that I was offered, nor was it the highest dollar offer as far as salary. I felt like I could unmask myself in the interviews, and someone who, well, I don't know if you'll have a visual for your podcast, but I'm playing with a fidget toy right now. I have very pronounced ADHD days. Today might be one of them, as you might tell from all my mental side quests during our conversation today already. But that and many other things about me as a person sometimes led to me feeling othered and like I had to perform or show up in a very particular kind of an avatar of myself, work Emily, corporate Emily. Um, anyway, so having said that, Reddit was actually the last round of final interviews that I did. And so I had just completed all of these other final interviews, some with brand names, some with startups, the full gamut. And in each one, you always get that spidey sense of like what the team is like and who they're looking to hire. And it's a tempting thing, just like with adult dating. I love to make those parallels that you kind of suss out, oh, this person is looking for someone who's really into gardening. So, yes, I have plants. I love them, not to mention that they're fake. So, to bring this back to why I chose Reddit and why I've seen others choose Reddit, it's not that I don't want to say that our offers aren't competitive. A lot of times they are. In my case, I could have made more money and actually taken a leadership role at another tech company and built out a sourcing function from scratch, which I have done before. And it was exciting. But ultimately, after having gone through a layoff and experienced some of the best and worst of company culture, particularly in the tech space, it was very important to me that I felt like I could show up with authenticity. That's part of my personal journey as well. And when I'm telling you, I showed up to my Reddit interviews so burned out because anyone who's out there interviewing, it's not, people say it's a full time job, but no full time job has you on blast like that for hours at a time and retelling your stories. And I'm using the star interview method and I'm looking at my notes, but I'm trying not to look like I'm looking at my notes. And really, my groceries are on the line here. Like, it's phenomenally stressful. And so I actually showed up to my Reddit interviews with some of my other ADHD friends can attest. I had multiple beverages lined up in front of me. I really was so tired of my own stories. It's like going on the 50th date of the month where you're just like, I can't introduce myself one more time. I showed up just so unmasked, I think, based on my interview fatigue, and then was met with people who were so themselves as well, and I felt so welcome. And so anyway, a lot of my decision came around that feeling of belonging and of authenticity, and oh, what a relief I can just be myself at work. Also, the opportunity. So I will close with this because I hear this from my candidates as well, because some of them come from the more well-established, bigger tech companies. At Reddit, our culture still feels, to me and to others I've talked to on the inside, very startup-y, which I will actually tell candidates my favorite and least favorite thing about working at Reddit is this. You still have so much green space. So you can come up with an idea and be like, well, like with the networking events. Last year, I met with our VP of recruiting and was like, and like pitched something and then wrote a doc. And she was like, great. And I was like, what? And like, you can make a wiki page and you can build this out and you can bring together all the cross-functional stakeholders and then you can bring in teammates and working with co-piloting with the teammate at this point, and just got all the
Heck yeah.
sponsorship that I needed, but there were no like, well, and just do it this way or don't do it this way. I was really trusted with my vision, but it was also terrifying and at times really stressful because of the ambiguity. So if that appeals to you and you want to build something and you're scrappy and inventive, this could be a great place for you. And a lot of the other roles, other than the building out the sourcing team from scratch, that was like a close call. But a lot of these other opportunities were really plug and play. Like, come here, be a recruiter. The
Sure.
metrics are already baked out. Here's your script. And I was like, I'm over 40 now. I'm too tired. Like, I just can't do that. I'd be so bored. So anyway, there's the long story long.
That is so cool to hear. One of my mottos is that life is way too short not to work on cool problems with
Mm,
interesting people.
mm,
That's something that I tell a lot of my candidates and really try to glean insight when I work with them to understand what are their motivations for their next role. Are
mm.
they going to be a good fit? Can they come in, spend a few years, contribute to really meaningful products, and see any opportunity as a springboard for their career? It's really important that we celebrate the people and their contributions in the short time that we have. You mentioned it earlier. There is no longer that 30-year career with a gold watch and a thank you and a pension.
Yeah.
So, what is that we provide with people? And to me, my lived experience tells me that it's relationships. And I'm able to go back and look at some of the relationships and career progression of folks that I've hired 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 companies ago. And the silver lining of being displaced or working in a higher volatile industry like startups is that you're able to pattern match and build that community and flywheel the experience and contribution in a different trajectory than perhaps one of the other categories of the S&P.
Yes, that was said
Um,
very eloquently.
you
I
mentioned
was just more
sourcing.
like,
Oh,
I
sorry.
get bored quickly. So yes, I'm taking notes.
You mentioned sourcing a couple times. We
Yes.
traded some notes around AI and sourcing. What are your thoughts on artificial intelligence and just the state of using that in recruiting?
Yeah, so first I'll touch on my personal experience because I may do some myth busting here and share some hot takes. I want to do that with some
Yes.
sensitivity because I do understand what I'm saying could make someone who's listening uncomfortable. And frankly, it kind of makes me a little bit uncomfortable because I do think and predict, I can't wait to revisit this podcast in 3 years and see which of my hot takes panned out. But um, it is disrupting recruiting, not, I don't think, to any significant extent at this point, but I think that it's on that path and it's happening pretty quickly. Um, so having said that, okay, so my real talk, real experience right now is that we at Reddit Recruiting, we have some great tools, things like Seek Out or the basics like LinkedIn Recruiter. So using those, where typically you would go out and you would type in a search string and voila, here are the candidates who match what the hiring leader is looking for. What I've noticed is that these tools that us recruiters were using to go out and find candidates pretty manually are now harnessing AI to recommend candidates to you, in some cases, even proactively. I log into LinkedIn Recruiter and now it's like, hello, Emily, thank you for logging back in. Based on your recent searches, here are recommended candidates. And I'm like, hello, am I on Amazon shopping for socks right now? Because I didn't even ask. And you are already telling me, like, we predict and we think that you might be looking for these additional profiles based on your searches. Now, no shade to LinkedIn, but I'm not seeing that the profiles it's recommending at this point are like spot on. I never would have found this myself. But even within the last month, it's already getting better. Like, I don't know if it's because
Yeah.
I'm giving LinkedIn recruiter feedback, but just I'm in there, I'm using the tools and I'm seeing, wow, that's actually not bad. Or I hadn't considered this candidate. I didn't even see them when I was searching. It can also, you can use ChatGPT to build error-proof Boolean search strings. So if you're a recruiter, a Boolean search string is like an if you know, you know type of thing. And in the past, when I had to do particularly technical recruiter interviews as a candidate, they'd have you whiteboard or type out a Boolean search string, and you're just hoping, please don't let my nerves get the best of me. I hope that I don't accidentally have a typo. And you can use ChatGPT to say, hey, build me a typo-free Boolean search string for this, and you can describe it and it'll write you one. And then ChatGPT isn't a person, so it actually seems to work best when I'm talking to it almost like I'm angry. Like I'll say, try it again, but use less this or do more of that or not like this. And then it'll rewrite it. And you have unlimited search strings available on places like ChatGPT as well. So I find that really interesting. And and this is the part where like I understand this is uncomfortable to hear, especially if you really built your career around traditional candidate sourcing. I do see this getting disrupted. I'm not saying that talent sourcing is getting replaced full stop, but we don't need to hire someone full time at this point to write search strings anymore. We just don't. And we may not next year or 2 years from now need to hire someone to do more generalized candidate searches. Where I think it's shifting, and if I were strictly in a sourcing role, which I've been in sourcing and talent attraction for far longer and deeper than I've been in the candidate closing part, which is where I'm at now, where I do full cycle, but I really focus on that back half of the search and managing the hiring manager relationships. So I take candidates through offer. I should say that in case someone's like, what is she talking about? So I kind of take candidates through the second half of the uh, hiring story. I can't think of the right adjective. It is a Friday, so I have Friday brain when we're recording this. Okay, so going back to sourcing, if it were me and I were just, not to say just, because again, this is like a full-time, very sophisticated, reputable career path within recruiting. But if I were in a recruiting role at this point that was focused on sourcing, I would be looking to expand how I define that and really include the full umbrella of talent attraction. Because if you're still hanging your hat on, I'm someone who can go out and find niche skill sets, or I'm someone who can put together a folder of qualified candidates, we may not need you to do that full time in the next few years. So, but that's fine if you're looking around corners. I love the idea of a periscope. So anyone who's not sure what that is, Google it, because
Oh,
it's like
nice.
something you never see in modern day. Think like a telescope that can look around a corner. Think about using your recruiting periscope. Look around the corner and see, hey, this is coming. We're talking about it. So great. Now you can think bigger on how you can continue to be marketable and employable. And what are some things that AI can't replicate or take over at this point? And when I think about things like networking events or bringing people together to build community, AI can't do that for us yet. Now, I use AI to put together networking events. So I might say, okay, this is great. This is a little Friday anecdote. Last night, I was looking to put together a cocktail mocktail recipe for a networking event I'm going to be part of that has a theme. And I was like, I can't think, I can't think, I can't think. And I went to ChatGPT and I was like, make me a recipe that could be both a cocktail and a mocktail that exemplifies this, and this and brings together these two groups of people. And it was like, here you go. It's called an empowerment elixir. And here are all the ingredients. And here are all the reasons what, like all the things that here's what the gin represents. And here's what the elderflower essence represents. All these different things perfectly formatted. So there are so many little ways that you can leverage the AI that's out there right now. But back to the point and away from the anecdotes, um, there are so many other things that we can be expanding our skill sets in. I just think we need to broaden how we're thinking about talent attraction and outside of just very traditional sourcing, because candidly, I am seeing that is being disrupted. Would I hire I think of like traditional recruiting roles. Would I hire a junior sourcer to do those really basic back end engineer, traditional kind of easy to fill searches at this point? Or would I not? And then the other thing that's really concerning to me, to just add on a little more flavor to this conversation is what I'm interested to see, and what something that I do have a concern about is there are so many studies, and you can Google it and look it up in the news, that AI has problems with bias. And so I would be concerned. And when we think about opportunities available, if you're a sourcing recruiter or you're focused on sourcing or talent attraction, I think another lever to pull or lane to explore is longer term underrepresented candidate engagement, since AI is not good at that. And maybe the search strings it's running are bringing back very homogenous results. And what I am concerned about is if traditional sourcing roles are replaced by AI, like, well, I could do this at a click of a button with a click of a button in Seek Out or LinkedIn or any of these other places to find me qualified candidates. Sure, they qualify, but they are all 30 something white men who graduated from the Waterloo. So, all right, well, I'm
Yes.
going to time out myself because that was a continuous stream of consciousness.
There is so much in there we could jam on. I agree around the concerns of diversity, equity, and inclusion in filling talent pipelines, particularly for engineering and tech companies, where often there are higher rewards. We do have a problem with venture capital and tech companies having lower representation from historically marginalized groups. And part of my mission in recruiting is to play a part in the direction that I personally believe we should move in as a society. We are nowhere near close to parity within the tech sector for representation of the US populace. As recruiters, when we think about the tools in our stack, it's important to be curious and to really think holistically at our pipeline and the inputs that are delivering candidates to that pipeline. So, sourcing with a tool that's leveraging an LLM API call to return a list of candidates that match some keywords that a hiring manager is looking for is just one layer in that, I guess, talent pipeline. And there's the difference between sourcing and pipelining. And sourcing may be heads down on a Boolean string, but pipelining are the activities, the daily motions we do as recruiters to build community and to find out the motivations of other people. And that can come from a variety of different sourcing channels outside of just one LLM powered search tool. I love that you mentioned getting boots on the ground to find women identifying engineers to come work at Reddit. That to me is why we do this, to build community, to get out there and meet folks. What advice would you have for a recruiter out there who might be looking to emulate your success or deploy that playbook, who's curious about AI, but also wants to do the hard work of filling roles? Because you're right, AI isn't going to be the driver in that conversion moment. And our role as recruiters, from a first principles thought, is to get to a handshake and a yes. How are you doing that?
Well, I've had an amazing experience at Reddit by getting executive sponsorship for committing to certain like representation goals in our candidate pipeline. And that to me is step one, because I found out earlier in my recruiting journey that I could be like, yeah, we're going to hire a underrepresented candidate in this role. Woohoo. And maybe even the hiring manager agrees. Maybe their director is pushing on the hiring manager to get this role filled, to get this role filled quickly. So my experience at Reddit, and like knowing better now as I came in, and even as part of my interview process, I was asking, what is the executive sponsorship and support like for diversity and inclusion in hiring? And then I feel like I've been part of moving that conversation forward with some of our senior leaders. and really, it's like step one, make sure you connect early and often with executives or people at the senior leadership level if possible, and get their buy-in before you jump right in and write your search strings or work on building your candidates of more, or your folders of more diverse candidates, things like that. So you really won't get very far, in my opinion or experience, without having the buy-in and commitments from the more senior leadership levels. And then real talk, and I'm not going to name drop today, but I have been at companies and had those experiences where hiring managers really are just keen to get the role filled quickly. They don't care. So you might run into that as a barrier as well. They're like, I don't care. I've even had opposition in hiring. For example, there was an engineering team I was hiring for some years ago. It's one of my anecdotes. Once I came over to tech, I didn't realize how much sexism I would face, both as a person and then as a recruiter trying to diversify our candidate pipeline. I hired the first very senior female engineer on a team of 19 men. And the hiring manager, and I was like, yay, this is so great. I meet with the hiring manager. She accepted. This is great. And she has referrals. And he said, well, wait a second. I don't want the team to skew too far the other way. Excuse me? You don't want to hire too many women, and you should be so lucky because this is the first one on a team of 20. First of all, she's an other, so we're at risk of her leaving. Second, did we even care about hiring a woman for this team at all? Like, glad anyway, there's that. And I also kind of felt for the candidate, like what environment are they walking into? And then third, wow, you are actively opposing. So I just want to acknowledge that we can't assume that the hiring leader has any stake in hiring more uh, inclusively or hiring more diverse candidates as well. And so when you get that buy-in at the senior leadership level, you can say, hey, I just like, as we kick off this search, just confirming some of the commitments we made at the, you can, mention the executive, like at the Jane level. And they're like, oh, Jane, okay. So then there's accountability there. I've also found it ineffective to be the only champion for diversity and inclusion in hiring in the room. So if you are facing any of that, like, well, I'm biased for action, these are critical, um, you know, initiatives the candidate's going to be working in related to the bottom line. It doesn't make any sense to try and swim upstream and convince them that hiring a more diverse candidate pipeline matters. So that's my other sign of if I'm getting any pushback or we just need to hire someone, to call a little bit of a timeout. There are times when I haven't done that and I've regretted it. And actually, um, I just appreciate this so much. One of our women software engineers at Reddit pointed out to me last year, hey, I've been on this interview panel for this role we've had open for months. And we really don't have, like, I'll just say it. She was like, we've only interviewed men so far. Oh, okay. So she's holding me accountable. There's, of course, there's like more to the story there. And this role is so hard to fill. And there are only 20 people in the world who qualify for it. And they do all appear to be men. But I really appreciate when teammates hold me accountable as well. And when they're noticing. And that, so anyway, that's a little bit of a side note. But I think I don't want to portray like I've got it all figured out and every executive supports me and I never make a mistake. I so appreciate having accountability um, from all sides at Reddit to have diversity and representation in the candidate pipeline. So, yeah.
100%. I love there's a piece in there that's critical for increasing representation at organizations when you're hiring. And it's what is the demographic makeup of your panel? It's one thing to
Mm,
say you want to increase representation of folks in the group, but what does your interview panel look like? Is it well represented? How do you do that in small organizations? How do you navigate those conversations with folks from historically marginalized and underrepresented groups so that they don't feel tokenized in the
mm-hmm.
process? All of that is critical. I've got a couple of hot takes on some other things you said. I agree around the joint thesis that diversity is a goal of the entire organization and it's reflective of the product and how the product serves a group of people.
Mm.
There's a lot of like diversity recruiting roles. I think everybody that's in recruiting is responsible for like diversity and inclusion. There's another piece that is also popular among HR folks, and it's that like referrals are bad and that referrals are biased. And the reality is, if you're performing at an elite level and you have that executive buy in, referrals are a very good thing. And you highlighted it.
Mm.
If the strategic goals of an organization are to have an engineering culture that fosters inclusivity and representation of women engineers in a software company, that is a good thing and that is a goal. And if you have talent magnets in that organization signaling to other female identifying engineers in the workforce to come join you, and they do, that is a very good thing and that is effective strategy. But there's so many blanket statements in HR, and we see it on social media all the time. There's this like purity test politicking within recruiting where each day there's like an argument du jour or somebody that we know is getting dunked on. And I see this all the time, people pontificating on referrals. And it's like, you might actually not be doing referrals right,
Mm.
because there are people out there like you who are doing it right. And referrals are a really good thing if they're strategically analyzed with data. So
Yes.
those
I
are a
think
couple of my hot takes.
it's also,
Please.
yes, people do come in hot with their opinions. Referrals are bad, referrals are good, the bots are taking over, all these things. A hallmark of a good relationship, a healthy relationship. So you're welcome everyone, free therapy today. This actually came from my own therapy, but I feel like it's so applicable to work. To come in with these hot takes of all referrals are bad, all referrals are good, diversity and inclusion looks like this, no, it looks like that. Well, the latest trend is, look, a healthy relationship, the hallmark is curiosity. Hey,
Yep.
I don't know if you're really upset with me or not, and I thought I'd just check in. I'm curious to know instead of assuming and then, blasting someone because they didn't text you back quickly enough, so they must be, they must want to break up with you. Same with work. Instead of coming in with an assumption or, what recruiting, why are you even considering these referrals? They must be all riddled with bias or problematic. Hey, come in with curiosity because the criticism closes the door. There is no conversation and nobody's learning anything. Coming in with curiosity, like, hey, recruiting team, I've heard that referrals are, not representative of uh, the talent. I feel like this is so buzzword. It's not representative of the talent market available or blah blah blah. Their available market. Point being, I would just like us to have these conversations with more like, I've heard this. What do you think? Or, checking myself here. This is what I think and frankly what I believe, but I'm curious if there are other perspectives that you might have on referrals or, really any of this. I've found that I've had two kind of secret sauce when I think about, even at the executive level, two tactics that really open or approaches that open the door. And it is a disarming level of authenticity, even if that means I show up with a whole lineup of beverages to my Reddit interviews. I distinctly remember it was kombucha, diet root beer, water, seltzer water. Anyway, so having said that, at all levels, when I show up completely 100% myself, it lets other people then unmask and kind of drop those defenses. Then we can have that conversation and then that curiosity. Hey, executive, I don't actually know where you stand on diversity and inclusion and hiring. I'd love to hear your takes and what's been challenging instead of, sitting down with the CTO and saying, our diversity hiring strategies really suck or nobody cares. That just slams the door shut and then you'll never get the sponsorship that you need. And you may be completely misunderstanding the other person too. So there you go.
There's this idea that's pretty popular on LinkedIn. You kind of alluded to it earlier. It's about authenticity and how we show up, both on the candidate and employer side. My mission is to empower the candidate employer relationship in the future of work. And there's a lot of spice out there about interview loops and interviews being too lengthy.
Mm.
I'm actually seeing the opposite of what I see daily in the algorithm. The candidates I'm placing with, and maybe it's just based on the strategic level and where they're at in their careers, want more time with the companies that they're interviewing with to pick up on that single signal.
Hmm. Hmm.
They want to talk to more dotted line stakeholders. They want to talk to more members of the team. And they're also not afraid to put out a work product or a work simulation or a strategy assignment because it allows them to demonstrate some asynchronous work and how they would actually operationalize into the team. Those are very like unpopular things on
Hmm.
LinkedIn right now,
Hmm.
but I really appreciate that you talk about how we show up with authenticity. And I think it does take more than 2 hours to make a critical decision in how we align one of our securities in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's our financial security.
Yep.
Sure, we're talking about placing software engineers in the best tech companies in the world. They may not even need to work in some cases.
Hmm.
So understanding what is that individualized employee value proposition that's going into the employer brand strategy is critical.
Also,
Any thoughts
LinkedIn is
there?
so it is built for clickbait. It's a social media platform. I've been saying for years it's Facebook but for jobs. Like when I explained to my grandma, like I just as I've had this accidental like fall down the rabbit hole to where all of a sudden people were following me, and I remember the first time that I had a post get 2 million views, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, can they see me? Is anyone going to bug me at the grocery store? It was so unnerving. But when I see these hot takes, LinkedIn is such a funny place. There isn't a lot of middle ground because that doesn't get clicks and comments and likes. And really, a lot of my posts that resonate with people are explaining context, but people want definitive answers like, is 10 interviews too
Yeah.
many? Or are all take home assignments just a way to get free work out of people? Here's the thing, and this is not very clickable and it's not very likable, although I'm seeing a lot of engagement on my posts recently where I feel like people are like, yeah, I thank you for sharing both sides. The best and most true answer to most of these topics on LinkedIn are, it depends. And that makes me uncomfortable too, because
Yes.
I want to be able to tell you, oh, yeah, every single time you get a take home assignment, it is a complete like waste of your time. And this company is taking you for a ride. Yeah, I went through that a couple years ago when I was interviewing. I didn't feel
We
good
all
about
have.
this take home assignment. And then I gave them such good ideas to solve their problem. I was like, now you don't even need to hire me. Just, I ended up backing out of the offer because it felt so, yeah, that whole experience felt weird. Other times, like when I interviewed with Netflix, I was like, sure, you want to cover your bases and make sure I can do a cursory candidate search, and how would I handle a role kickoff with the hiring manager. And also it was Netflix. I was like, I've heard you pay a lot of money, of course I'll do a project for you, and as long as it's reasonable. But that's not one of those scenarios that you can say it's always this or it's definitely that or it's never these things. And that's what people tend to promote on places like TikTok and LinkedIn. But the answer is usually somewhere in an uncomfortable middle that requires more context and explanation.
And no one orders milk toast at a restaurant. And the problem with LinkedIn and trying to grow an audience or engagement is like you can't be everything to everybody. I
Mm.
think Abraham Lincoln said, you can fool some of the people some of the time, but not all the people all the time. And then I think Bob Marley took that in a different direction on one of his songs. But in terms of like the algo and that growth, one of the things I've noticed around enragement is a lot of us recruiters, like if you've been around for 10 years in employer brand, like we were on LinkedIn before the news feed. Like I'm just a humble dude out in my basement trying to build community one scroll at a time. But then out of the woodwork has come the job seeker sentiment. And there's a very clear dot that I can connect. It's almost as if the folks from Reddit anti work jumped over to LinkedIn to just start talking smack and to bring their negativity or disenfranchisement or dissatisfaction with their lived experience to people who are assumed to be in power. And that, unfortunately, is recruiters.
Mm.
LinkedIn will always amplify recruiters and sales folks' content in their algorithm because they sell a sales product and a recruiting product. But at the end of the day, there's so much misinformation about just the hiring process in general, and it's not black and white. And a lot of candidates may not know that the recruiter is not the decision maker on the hire.
Yep, we just get to deliver the
One
bad news when
theory
someone isn't selected. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say one theory I've had that we could fix it, and this may not be terminally unique, is I've always liked Reddit's karma scoring system.
Mm.
LinkedIn should totally do something like that for credibility in a real way, not like the fake top voices badges. I
Oh,
think at this
yes,
point, people know how to growth
those
hack them.
are, yes, every time LinkedIn is like, hey, please submit your opinions for free on something so that we can add it to our database of knowledge. And then we'll give you this top voice badge, but it doesn't even have to be a good opinion. So buyer beware. If someone is touting themselves as a top voice, I'm not saying it's not deserved, but a lot of people have it just because they answered a few questions for LinkedIn, because they will tell you, we'll give you this cookie if you give us your opinions. And I refuse. I
How do
am,
other
yeah, go ahead.
I like that you say you refuse. How do other recruiters out there who might want to emulate your success, both professionally in your career growth, but also as a creator on the platform? What advice do you have for them?
Well, I think first I just want to acknowledge all of my privilege. Like, I am a white lady with no visible disability. And so I feel like, hi, that plays a part. So I just want to like, and then we'll put that on the shelf, move on. When I think about other opportunities that I've gotten or ways that I've moved forward or gotten ahead, although now that I'm in my 40s, I'll get some feedback like, Emily, why aren't you in a higher level position? So there's actually, I don't know if I'm actually successful or not. I think I'm successful because I've been raising two kids on my own and managed to work full time at the same time. So I learned early on when my daughter was born and had some, there were just some extra needs there, that I needed to measure success differently, and that it may not be I'm going to be the vice president of something. So there's my devil's advocate. Like, I actually will face some bias there, and that I should be farther along. Whereas I feel like, well, I have a job. That is plenty in this market. But when I think about opportunities I got after layoff or at any other point, people went out of their way to give me good opportunities because I'd helped others and not just talked about it. Like, I actually get on the phone with people and will help. I'm not great at responding to LinkedIn DMs because I already have so many folks in my personal life who need that second look on a resume or advice in their job search, that kind of thing. Anyway, so I've really tried to help others. And then others, I didn't do it so that I'd get something, but particularly after I was laid off, people reached out from all over the place that I didn't even know had attended, like a free lunch and learn with me as a recruiter. I love to share just openly interview tips or hot takes on resumes, things like that. Because I'd helped others, they in turn helped me so much. And actually, this has to do with LinkedIn success too. But to answer the question as far as career success, or at least forward momentum, and the fact that I have a job and benefits right now, it was helping people. And then it was also just going back to authenticity. I have been told over and over and over again that I have a great attitude, which I don't know. You can ask my kids whether or not that's true, but that's feedback that I get every year in performance reviews. And for the 3 months that I worked for Abercrombie, that was a time. I ran out of there screaming. There's a great Netflix documentary on Abercrombie you should watch before you shop there. So anyway, that was a time for another podcast, but I was actually told there that I was smiling too much. So if that tells you a little bit about my personality, people like working around me.
It's
I'm
awesome.
weird, but I feel like I also bring a lot of energy and enthusiasm. And when you're a job seeker, employers are evaluating in your interviews, is this someone I want to spend time with? And one company I was interviewing with last 2 years ago, I got into a second of 2 virtual interviews, and the interviewer said, "Emily, I was so excited to meet you. So and so just messaged me right before you got on and said she just talked to you and she loves you." And I was just so excited to talk to you because she already had these great things to say. You're going to love talking with Emily. And this isn't too self-congratulating. I mix up letters and numbers all the time. I'm not the smartest person in the room, but people like to spend time with me generally, I think. Asterisk, see footnote. I'm sure there are a lot of exceptions to that, but not when I'm in line at the DMV. Ooh, we're almost out of time. I'm going to have to run in a minute. The other thing as far as LinkedIn is it's pretty much the same thing. Like, I post memes for job seekers. I'm having fun on there. I also am all about authenticity and transparency in hiring. My shtick has been pulling back the scenes behind the world of hiring, particularly in the tech space. I really kind of found and used my own voice and my own brand. And when I'm not sure what to post, I'll ask myself, first of all, LinkedIn's paying me $0. I make $0 from being on LinkedIn and having all the followers.
Zero.
Yeah, like I remember that first time that I went viral and I was like, 2 million views. Am I going to make money? No. Imagine if each person who viewed that had given me a penny. That's
LinkedIn
like,
doesn't pay its creators.
yes, not at all. So when I think about, but when I do want to contribute, I think about these 3 things. What do I know? Who can I help? And sometimes I'll ask myself, like, who needs me today? And usually someone or something will come to mind. It's like my sister, I don't know, I probably shouldn't share my sister's name, but like my sister so-and-so is really going through it. And that actually is common for a lot of people I know in her age bracket. That's something I want to talk about, like advice I give my younger sister. So anyway, well, this was
Love
so
it.
robust and fun. I wish I didn't have to go so abruptly, but thank you very much for hosting me and having me today.
Absolutely, Emily. If you're tuned in, you know where to find Emily on LinkedIn. Best of luck to you wherever this journey will take you next. Thanks for tuning in to the Rebel TA podcast.
Thank you.